Welcome back to Star Narratives, the podcast. This is accessible and relatable astrology that teaches you how to support your emotional health using the wisdom of the zodiac. I'm your host, Natha Campanella. Hello, welcome to another episode. Ooh, we've got a good one today. We're talking about Venus. Really, we're talking about Venus in Aries because technically we are still in Aries season. But I invited my guest today to talk about Venus in Aries because that's what she has in her chart. And we got into some really deep discussion about the archetype of Venus and how Venus is so connected to our self-worth and to the things that we think we're missing. And how when we are unconscious, we try to meet those needs, but usually in dysfunctional ways. And it takes some time and, of course, some introspection and some interpersonal work to really get to a place where we can name what we are seeking. And we can really look at some of the things that we do that get in our way of being able to feel like we're really valuable and really worthwhile without having to get that reflected back to us from a partner. So my guest today is Olivia. I'm going to read this from her bio. She has received the gift of clearing energy from the human system. Her work allows the soul to reach its highest potential of health, healing, and harmony. So Olivia is really a very, very wise and old soul. And I loved getting to have this conversation with her because, and you'll hear this, she is somebody that embodies her sexuality in such a beautiful way. And she shared how that wasn't always true, how it used to take other forms. And you know me, I always love talking about Venus as an archetype and the connection to the divine feminine and to that innate power and sexuality that we all have that can be hard to get to. Having all of us being a part of this culture where feminine sexuality is tricky. So tricky. So you might remember that I had another very interesting podcast episode, and that was also on Venus and Venus in Aries. And that was with Sondra Primeaux. And you might want to go back and look at that. I believe that was in November of 2018. I'll link it in the show notes. Anyway, let's jump in. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Olivia.
Hello, Miss Natha.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I invited you on today to talk about Venus in the sign of Aries because we are in the middle of Aries season and we are quickly approaching Venus season. And even though we don't technically have a Venus season, Venus does rule the sign of Taurus, which is coming up quickly. And you are just somebody that is so, in my opinion, like Venusian in nature, but you really, really work that Venus in Aries. And so I'm going to explain some of what Venus in Aries is like. But first of all, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do and who you are?
I would love to do that. So hi everyone. My name is Olivia. I work within the energetic body, within the energetic system to open people up to their highest potential. How do we do this? We take away everything that is not working, whether it's a belief system or a memory or a trauma or a trigger or a habit, etc. I work within all of those undercurrent roots, all of that shadow side, to release that so that the human being can really move back to its birthright of harmony and potential. It is my favorite thing in the whole world to do. Every day I wake up and I am so very grateful that I get to spend my days doing the experience that I get to have with all of my clients. Doing podcasts like this with Natha, it is just so fun. And yeah, that is mostly the flow over here.
Awesome. Yeah, I have had the pleasure of working with you as a client, and I can attest that your work is really powerful and that I have been able to see new things about my experience that I really wasn't able to see as clearly through your work. So,
Thank
yeah.
you. I mean, it's so fun because everything that we've done together and that I get to do with others is all stuff that's come from my own personal experience of opening and growth. And one reason why I love astrology so much is because really, like, it's all in the chart, right? Like, you can find all these aspects of myself, the work that I do within you and the work that you do, like all of it is in the chart. The astrology is never wrong. And I know we laugh about that all the time, but has it ever been wrong? Ever?
There's a
Never.
lot of truth
Like,
in.
gorgeously accurate. I love it. But yeah, I mean, it's all written in the chart, all of it.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you
So,
far enough and like keep opening yourself enough, it seems that you can reach that potential of the astrology of the chart as well.
yeah, I think that's really accurate. And we have had some fun going through your chart. And, it's interesting because before I actually met you in person, I only knew you through your social media feed. And it's this really aesthetically beautiful feed. Your pictures are all really beautiful. They all have a similar look to them, and you're very, very poetic. And so before I even knew you, that was my first impression, was this very Venus impression. And Venus, for anybody listening that doesn't know, Venus is one of the archetypes of beauty in the chart. And she is about the divine feminine, and we all have Venus in our chart. And really, she talks about the way that we attract people to us and the things that we sort of our magical powers, really. And of course, it's not magical powers, it's just that we all have this innate ability to pull in what we need. We have to pay attention to it, though. And so when I looked at your chart, I was not surprised to see that your Venus was in the sign of Aries, which we've been talking about Aries a lot, but Aries really is a fiery, confident, enthusiastic, really assertive and sexual sign. And so when we pair Venus with that Aries archetype, it just becomes this powerhouse. And so I guess let me ask you, Olivia, what has your experience of Venus and Aries been like for you in your life?
Um, it's really hilarious to me because I did not know for most of my life that I was operating on kind of the darker side of my Venus and Aries. I didn't have the information to really take responsibility of the Venus and Aries. So I up until like 6 years ago, I was pretty much running off of the Venus and Aries like fire without really any self-control. Kind of like, it's this really like erotic, sensual, pleasure-driven combination that can really take things kind of far out. And the interesting thing is like simultaneously before I really integrated that I had Venus in Aries and I got the necessary tools to start looking at it, I was super insecure. Which I'm curious, like for those others who are listening who have Venus in Aries, like did you have a deeper wound of like worthiness and self-acceptance too? I am curious about that because the Venus in Aries really took on this like kind of dark flavor because the undercurrent of it wasn't playful. It was kind of shattered from it. And I feel like you understand what I'm saying with that. Like that fire can really get you into some kind of interesting experiences that are without the right tools can be pretty rough.
Yeah, well, that is the nature of all of the signs, right? Is that they all have a dark side and then they have a light side. And most of us are operating within the spectrum, going from side to side all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
And so I really started to integrate the Venus and Aries and like where it had previously taken me in love and in romance and in dating, even in friendships, right? It was like all encompassing connection. Give it to me, all of it, that like fire. And so, you know, over my life, I've started to really integrate the Venus and Aries, and it became something that was so much more respectful and selfless. And so really like going from being a selfish lover where everything is about pleasure and everything is about me to, you know, in Aries, like the first sign, right? It's the new sign. So Venus, love, Aries, new. Love is amazing. Everything is about love. Give me more. Give me all. Give me everything you have. And so a huge awakening I had with Venus and Aries was really stepping out of like the selfish lover and into the selfless lover and being more like, okay, what can I do for you? How can I support you? How can I pleasure you? Instead of being like constantly like me, and me, Venus and Aries sometimes.
yeah, I love that. And I love this conversation because, you know, we all have this desire to evolve and to really embody the best parts of every piece in our chart. And I do think that we're naturally pulled towards being the best. But before we can be the best, we have to spend time in the dark side. And when
Totally.
it comes to Venus, you know, Venus rules the sign of Taurus, but Venus also rules the sign of Libra. And in Taurus, she's about self-worth and the way that we value ourselves and our self-concept and self-love and attracting people and things to us. And in Libra, she becomes more relational. She is very wanting harmony, wanting relatedness. But sometimes what happens is that we really understand our value to be connected to how much we are loved or how we are seen. And I think this is true for anybody. Obviously Venus in Aries is going to come on very strong and be very fiery, but every Venus in nature is going to be seeking something specific that they need the reflection from somebody else. So for you, it sounds like it was, you know, you needed like the erotic, the sensual,
Like
the pleasure.
tell me I'm beautiful. Yeah, like tell me I'm worthy, please.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's so fun, like that melting pot with the Taurus and the Libra and the Venus, like it's all that worth and relationship and balance and so fascinating.
Yeah, and you and I had an interesting conversation the other day about it, where my Venus is in the sign of Gemini, which
Mm-hmm.
is also in the dark side, can be very flirtatious and very much about jumping from partner to partner, always sort of wanting more stimulation, more,
Yeah,
um, you know,
more
and
excitement, Gemini, like
yes,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, and we both expressed how that had been very detrimental to us.
totally. Yeah, Can I share a story?
Yes, please.
So with in regards to Venus and Aries, a huge moment for me when I started to understand my Venus and Aries. And when I say understand it, when I started to make it really work for me instead of giving my power to that Venus searching, seeking aspect you just spoke so eloquently to. I started to tap into my Venus and Aries, particularly for my setup, and I started to get it to work for me instead of consistently like handing my power over to the Aries side, which is like flirtatious and fun and sexy and like all that stuff's great. But like there's more than that too. And so I remember like in my old storyline was that all these men are like coming after me and they're coming to like date me and almost like I'm not safe and like they're all coming towards me and kind of bombarding me and putting me in danger. And this crazy, I swear it was the turning point of when I started to really have this deeper relationship with this aspect of my chart, was when I realized like, oh my goodness, Olivia, you, my dear, it was so humbling, are the one that's actually almost like Venus and Aries, like predator-esque towards the men. And so for up until like that moment of clarity, I always assumed kind of like blindly and a little hilariously that they were all coming after me, right? Like I was being preyed on, when in actuality, like I was letting that Venus and Aries kind of like addiction to the moreness invite this like almost predatory kind of lustfulness towards them. And in that moment I really got to see myself super clearly with these super sober eyes, and it was so healing for me. And I really reclaimed so much power in that moment in this certain aspect of my chart to be like, I take responsibility for that part, for going after them and actually being so blind that I was just going after them to fill that Venus searching through that Aries passion and fire and zest and this and that and more. And in that moment is the pivotal moment for me when I started to use the chart to benefit me, to reclaim my power instead of give it away. And I think that that's something that you, Natha, do so just, you're such a wizard at this, at inviting through the chart, through the context of astrology, a way to really reclaim your birthright of inner knowing and power that you can actually have when you start to look at these aspects of the chart and be like, how am I relating to this? How am I really relating to this concept? And when I got to take a sober look at how I was really relating to Venus and Aries, it absolutely changed my life forever. I mean, it changed all my relationships forever. I mean, it made me such a more selfless lover, such a better lover, such a better friend to my partner. And so, yeah, it was super powerful.
Oh, thank you. I love hearing that.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it was amazing. And
Yeah, it's
relate to that, like love and worth and relationship. Like we could all benefit, I think, from looking with sober eyes at our Venus and where it's at in our chart. How do we relate to pleasure? How do we relate to love? How do we truly relate to our self-worth? And how is this melting pot either working for us or, quite frankly, the opposite?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because when we're talking about, astrologically, Venus in Taurus belongs in the second house, which is a very, it's a house about me, right? It's very selfish. It's a selfish house. And in astrology, selfishness is not always a bad thing. We have to be selfish. Our world has no option but to revolve around us. We have our only perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And the Venus in the seventh house is about partnership. So it's about us. So we're looking at this dynamic between the selfishness and the person that we turn into when we can't be selfish. But essentially, both come along with this sort of hole that we're always looking to fill. We're trying to figure out what we need in order to feel loved. We're trying to figure out, how can I get the reflection from people that I need in order to feel like I'm valuable, in order to feel like I am loved.
Mm-hmm.
And so Venus in an unconscious form will do what you described. It will have us acting out.
The searcher.
It will have us searching and seeking and blaming. And, these men are coming to me. I can't do anything about it.
Woe is me. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Powerless, unconscious, powerless.
Yes.
Kind of reactive behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. And we all have these places, right? Because we want to be loved.
Totally. And it's so cool because through the invitation of astrology, it's how can I guess this is what I asked myself, how can I integrate this aspect, take it so it's in a conscious place so that I can radiate this level of worth and inner acceptance of my essence, of my sensuality outward. Isn't that so safe? Doesn't that made me feel so safe, is when I made that shift, took the Venus from unconscious to conscious, radiated this new level of I see. And that was so, it was very safety inducing. I felt really grounded and well when I made that shift in my Venus and Aries.
Yeah. And I think that would be similar for anybody that's willing to bring some of that unconsciousness into the light, because every sign has the downside, right? Aries on the downside is impatient and competitive and, frankly, loves to fight, loves the drama, and is loyal to self and only self. But Aries on the high side is, very much about getting needs met and fulfilling desires and developing a sense of real courage and also really learning how to be self-sufficient. And it's true for all of the signs. Everyone has a downside and an upside, but when we're doing the kind of work that you're describing, it allows you to kind of take a deep breath and see yourself clearly, and then move into a place where suddenly your relationships are feeling better. Mm-hmm. So my question for you, Olivia, is, I know that you're really adept at this in your work with people. How do you advise people, especially people who are in the very beginnings of their spiritual awakening, how can they come into deeper consciousness with their actions and with themselves?
That's a great question. And whenever I first think back with a humble laughter at myself, because I remember I never got that question within myself of how can I become more aware of myself. It was almost I just got punched in the face and it was here you go. Here's this big, huge thing you need to heal. But I really think that people know. Mm-hmm. And my advice to that person who's listening, advanced or not, but just to most keenly respond to your question, especially in those beginning phases, it's that discomfort that is there. What is that? You know what it is. You know where it comes from. And if you stare at it long enough, and if you sit with it long enough thinking you don't know, you will find out, because your system has the innate wisdom to see what it is. Why? Because the body deeply desires to heal. The system deeply desires to become conscious of itself, whether it's in the context of astrology or just in healing in general. The wisdom of the system wants to return to balance. It really wants to be in alignment with its deepest spiritual path. That's what it wants. And so whether it's a memory or a belief or an essence or a feeling or physical dis-ease or discomfort, I would say face it, like really go in there and open it up. Spend some time consciously interacting and interfacing with that which prevents you from walking your path. And I know that every human being knows inside of themselves. They know three things. They know their potential. If you're on this planet, you know these things. I just know it. You know your potential. You know what prevents you from getting there. And you know that at some point you're going to have to interface with it, whether it's facing it, dropping the bag of what it is, healing it, however that works for the person. Those three things, every single human knows. So I would say start to tap into your potential that you know you have. It's a feeling, it's a vibe, you know what it is. The thing that prevents you from dropping it, whatever it is that you need to let go of, that resistance, that anger, that resentment, that fear, the belief, and then consciously make a choice to do that so that you can return to your potential. If you do that long enough, you'll get super far down the road super fast.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah, that's just been my experience that I've had with myself and with others. But the main thing is like, we know. You know what I mean? We know. We know. We all know. We know our potential. We know what we don't want to let go of to get there. And to just really become conscious of both of those things that's where the money's at right there.
Yeah, I was thinking for anybody that's listening, and if you are curious about what your Venus sign is, you can find an ebook you can download for free on my website at nathacampanella.com. But even before you do that, as we're talking about this idea of the missing piece, right? The missing piece of our being able to see ourselves as healed and worthy and beautiful. If you were to look at your relationships and just look at the trajectory of all of the especially intimate relationships that you've had in your life, you know what some of the things are that tend to stick you every time, right? Mm-hmm. Like we all, like Olivia just said, we all have an idea. And knowing your Venus sign will really help you to sort it out on a deeper level. But the truth is that you already have the information in.
Totally. Yeah. It's really that willingness to look soberly at the information that you already have within your own wisdom, that willingness to just take that kind of cringed look at your level of acceptance and your level of responsibility. I think that nothing takes the place of that brave moment. Like when we look at our relationship to the experience and like what we know that we're bringing to it, it's such an invitation for the other to do the same. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Tenderly, like, okay, I know that this is what I'm doing here in my relationship with you. I know this. I'm aware. I don't know what to do about it yet, maybe, but I am aware that I have this tendency or this undercurrent of frustration that I bring to our experience together. I just want you to know that I'm aware. And just by like confronting your partner or your friend or whatever with the understanding of where your Venus is at, creates so much more richness and joy in the relationship and just like a willingness to change.
Yeah. I think that with my personal experience with my Venus in Gemini, I didn't know that I had Venus in Gemini until really just a few years ago, as I began to really dive into astrology and really understand what that meant. And I could see the ways that it was really getting in my way, because it was making it so that I could never go deeply into a relationship, because Gemini is such a sign of resting on the surface.
Is that an air sign, right?
It's an air sign, and it's very much about always pulling in new and exciting information.
So when things get dull for a Gemini, generally speaking, it's like that's what they don't want.
Right. They're always looking, they're always scanning the horizon for what's next.
Interesting.
Knowing that about myself really helped me to understand that I needed to work on going deeper in my partnerships. And that has been a real journey in and of itself.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure, because at that point it's like, oh, there's nowhere to go.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so as we're talking about what's lacking is like for somebody that has, and this is true for many of the air signs, right? This is true for Libra and Gemini and Aquarius. And even some of the water signs and some of the fire, like this isn't just a Gemini thing, but that always looking for what's next, not wanting to be bored, wanting to rest on the surface, that can really get in the way. And it can be that sort of boulder in the center of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like if it gets hard or if it gets weird, or if we have to talk about this one more time.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I'm out. Then I'm thinking about something else. I'm fantasizing. I'm, off in outer space.
Totally. Yeah. I remember another huge Venus and Aries lesson for me was the like allurement, and I guess this is like exactly what you're saying, but just relating my personal experience, this like allurement of I have my partner, he's amazing, and yet there was still this little eye, the Venus and Aries eye, that kind of always was like looking somewhere, looking to find something else that was more fiery, more passionate. And I remember another huge moment where I went from being unconscious in this aspect of my chart to fully conscious was when I actually did. I got invited to share time with another partner, and I had to really make a choice for myself. Like, what do I want? What do I want? I get to choose right now. Do I want to stay? Do I want to go deeper? Do I want to go to the place that's hard? Do I want to look at this part where I'm selfish and my needs matter more to me than theirs? Do I want to look at that, which is where the magic's at, which is where the real change happens? Or do I want to take this invitation to follow the flame? And for me, like if I had taken that invitation to follow the flame, if I had gone to that new and exciting thing, oh my gosh, I would have missed out on the epic experience of taking that aspect of that eye that was always looking to find that other way, the other person that will make me feel even more loved, even more desirable, even more worthy. That epic moment of taking that aspect from being unconscious to conscious. And so it was a huge turning point for me in this aspect of my chart, because I chose, just like you have chosen with your man, to consistently, consciously choose to stay. And there's so much excitement in the staying. There's like a new level of excitement in the staying, and this new level of joy in the staying. It's more subtle, but it's so much more than like all the excitement we kept looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
And
it's so much more rich.
yes, and it's like the Libra aspect of Venus is where we have our partner mirroring things back. And so that is one of the things that is so that we're kind of seeking with our inner Venus nature, is that we want our value mirrored back. And in the beginning of a relationship, we get all of the good stuff mirrored back. Oh, you're so beautiful, you're so funny, you're so sexy, I just want to be with you all the time. And as the relationship progresses, we begin to get some of the not so amazing things mirrored back. You're bossy. You always think you're right. You're possible.
like way too much.
And it's hard. And I think that that's what you're talking about, is that the deeper that we're willing to go, the more clearly that we are willing to see ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the richer really our experience becomes.
And the more grounded our worth actually becomes, because we love, the human mind, of course, loves being mirrored back pretty things. But what happens when we're mirrored back that thing that we know is there, but we're like, oh, nah, I'm going to pretend like that's not. And then when we actually integrate that and we take it from that unconscious to that conscious place, our worth becomes something that we don't have to outsource. We get to have it from within because we've integrated this huge piece that Libra reflection has given back to us that we didn't want to see. But they knew the partner that stays, the partner that wants to be a witness to the growth and the change and the magic, they know that we need to see that reflection. And they love us so much for that. And there's a level of like self-worth that is in us too that says, show me that thing that's ugly. I want to see that so I can be better. I want to see that so I can be better for you. I want to see that so I can be better for us, and really ooze a level of true radiance out that really only comes from being fully integrated, with all the different aspects. It's such a fun dance.
I think also that it is, we all have our unattractive, unappealing aspects that are probably never going to go away. We can work to shift them and we can work to bring them into a more integrated place. But, if you're bossy, you're probably always going to be bossy, right? If you're nitpicking when you're under stress, you're probably always going to be nitpicking. But there's something that's really valuable about knowing that you're still lovable. You're still valuable, even when you're being a bitch, right?
Totally. Like, I love you anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful to really not chase the kind of, for me, like Venus and Aries addiction to fire. And for you, the Venus and Gemini addiction to new, to really to learn how not to chase that, and to really find the I love you anyways because I see you in all of your aspects, is such a sacred experience as a human and as a woman, and to be really loved in all of it is so special.
Right. Because the chasing, what I found is that the chasing the new and interesting really, really got in the way of my life. It didn't just affect me. It affected my partners. It affected my family, my kids, all of this stuff. But what I'm able to do, and I'm a work in progress, is that I now am aware that I have a desire for new and exciting things. So I can find those things in other places, but also within my relationship. We are these dynamic beings, right? Mm-hmm. We're never going to know every single thing about our partners. There are always more things that come up.
Totally.
And that is what I can focus on. And, that reminds me. So here's something that really strikes me about your social media presence, Olivia, is that you have this, your passion and your desire and your sexuality really shine through on your Instagram account, but it seems very much directed towards women, and not in a sexual way, but it's more like you are embodying this like powerful sexual priestess energy. And in a way, it's like you're calling in other women as an invitation to do the same thing for themselves. And so I'm just wondering, that seems like a very positive way for you to be using this powerful, powerful Venus that you have. And so tell me whether that is intentional.
It's unintentional, actually. It just kind of started to happen once I started to really see myself clearly and source my worth from my healing journey and taking off these layers of fear and doubt and worry. When I started to really devote myself to that, I started to open up my wisdom. And I noticed that so many women have the same thing, that they've spent so long outsourcing their power and their wisdom from so many other things. And it's my expression. And it used to be seen, Natha, truthfully, it was very hard for me because it used to be seen. It's always been a thing for me. I've always been more artistic and more creative and more flirty and more quick to say the like kind of inappropriate joke, but everyone's thinking it. And I made a lot of people really uncomfortable. And that was part of my healing journey too. But really learning how to stand in my power, in my feminine wisdom that comes from the earth, by taking all the layers off, it's been a game changer. And it's really my desire to reconnect other women to that same wisdom that runs through their veins. It literally runs through our veins. That desire to express and to share and to be vulnerable and to be raw, it runs through every single woman's veins. And so, yeah, it's a holy invitation for all women to find it in them to take off these cloaks of guilt and shame and fear and start to feel their bodies, feel their wisdom, feel their gifts coming through. And it's so funny because I don't really receive any messages from men on Instagram, which is so interesting because I hear so many women that are like, yeah, I can't stop getting harassed. And I find that so interesting because I receive such few messages from men. And it's how I really know that I have started to tap into that more empowered essence that's inviting women forth, because it's not inviting men forth at all, not even in a flirty way. It's inviting women forth to be like, I want to feel that. How did you get there? Show me how you got there. And yeah, it's a process. It's just a process of integration and healing.
Yeah, so you do a lot of work with Alyssa Neal, and she's actually going to be on the podcast next month in May.
Yay.
But you guys both have a very similar energy, and I didn't even notice this. I noticed this because my husband pointed it out, that you guys you're both beautiful, right? And you both have a very intense sexual energy that comes through on your accounts, but he was the one that said it's not for men. And it's obviously not for men. And so I've never heard you tell me that you don't get messages from men, but that makes so much sense. And my personal experience being with you and Alyssa is that you give this permission to women to embody their sexuality in a way that is very, it's this invitation that makes you think. I did a ceremony with you guys a few months ago, and it was a high priestess ceremony. And it
was holy priestess.
Was it a full moon, or I can't remember what the
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's, yes. But I really left that ceremony thinking so much more deeply about sexuality in general. And because you two really facilitated this environment for all of the women of all ages and all body types to come together and really revel in their Venetian power, and without any sense of competition, without any sense of,
it's
feeling
pure joy and remembrance. And there's no, her and I can speak for her to this topic, is we don't believe that there is a right or wrong in expression. It's like we have both felt wrong in our lives for being who we are. And it is our upright, just downright, just deepest joy in life is to see that look on a woman's face when she remembers how to play. And to see that look on a woman's face when she remembers, even for a moment, the amount of sheer power that she really has. To see that look on her face of just joy, to even just see herself for 1 second clearly, that is why we do what we do. Because we both felt wrong for who we really are. And we will not promote that ever, never. Yeah, never, never. It's our biggest passion.
I think that
Yeah, and it is for women.
yeah, it seems like it's very old and deep and ancient programming. This idea that we have to feel like we are wrong or bad for being women, being sexual women. And I love that as we're doing this emergence of the divine feminine, really, which we're seeing show up in many ways in the world,
Yeah.
that we do need teachers like you that can embody what it is like to have struggled and, of course, had your own experiences, like we all do, of feeling wronged, feeling bad, feeling shut down or predatory even, and coming out the other side and saying, no, 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 it's okay to be highly sexual and empowered.
Yeah, totally. And it's okay to feel, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to laugh. And this is like the overarching thing is like, it's okay to just be human. Like, it's okay. And that's what her and I both weave that web together as we continue and will continue for the rest of the years of our lives. But thank you for bringing that forth for everyone to hear, because it is such a special thing that we do. And you'll be with us at our next retreat as well.
Yes. So, yes, good segue, because I wanted to ask you how people can find you and how they can work with you.
Yes. So I am Wild Sage and Bone is my business. You can find that on Instagram, wildsageandbone.com as my website. And yeah, those are the two places that you can find me most. I do a lot of teaching, online courses, retreats as well, and then one-on-one work additionally. So there's so many different ways to connect with me. I would love to hear your feedback from this podcast as well. If anything came through. Yeah, Alyssa and I both host full moon ceremonies every month, both in Boulder where we all reside or online. And so, yeah, if you tune into Instagram particularly, you will stay up to date on all of the things.
Yeah. And if anybody is listening and hasn't put this together yet, Olivia and Alyssa and I did a workshop, an online gathering, and that was a few weeks ago. We had a great turnout. So if you were there, this is Olivia.
Oh, and also we're going to be doing much more of that.
Yeah. We're working on some classes to some regular things to do to, kind of help everyone do their work as we're all doing ourselves at this crazy time in history.
Exactly. And it's like, there is nowhere to go. The only way out is through now. And I think that all these different healing techniques and stuff, it's all just ancient wisdom. That the only point of all of it, whether it's astrology or energetic work or whatever it may be, it's like, it's just bringing you back to that inner knowing that you have, that like inner compass that just knows your next step, what you need to heal next. So yeah, all the offerings that we have are going to be so special.
Yeah. And, working with you, just again, another testament to your work.
Thank you.
My experience is that with every session that, you bring your clients a little deeper and a little deeper. And I think that's kind of what we're all looking to do right now, is how can we move past this trap that we're all stuck in, where we have these old stories and these old patterns that are just causing us pain and suffering, and how can we begin to bring it to the surface and start to dissect it, so that, like you, Olivia, say, you're pulling out the bad roots so that your tree can really thrive and grow. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, the body wants to be perfectly healthy and well and at its highest potential. And so why are we stopping it is my question, mostly to myself. Like, Why do I want to prevent my own freedom? I don't. So what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Who do I need to work with? What do I need to face? Show me what it is so that I can clear it, so that I can get on with my path.
Yes.
Yeah, like you share that mentality about life. It doesn't really matter anymore what comes up. Whatever comes up is perfect, and it's just another layer.
Exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me, Olivia. This was great.
Martha, always a pleasure.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to work with me privately or read more about all of the numerous ways to work with me, visit my website, marthacampanella.com. I really appreciate any time that you take to leave a review of this podcast on any of the platforms that you listen on. It helps other people to find it. And of course, if you enjoy this podcast, share it widely and freely with those that you know and love. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.